This is an ABC News special report. The Supreme Court rules. Now reporting, David Muir.
Good morning, everyone, and we are coming on the air right now because the Supreme Court has just ruled on the key issue of same-sex marriage. Our team at the court right now, let's get right to Terry Moran. What have we learned, Terry?
David, it's over. The long constitutional debate on whether gay couples have a constitutional right to marry is over, and the answer is yes. In every state in the United States, as of now, gay couples have a constitutional right to marry. A 5-4 decision from the United States Supreme Court written by Justice Anthony Kennedy, finding that the 14th Amendment requires every state to open their marriage laws to gay couples and requires every state to recognize the gay marriages that are performed in other states. It's an opinion, just looking at it briefly, that is filled with what you might call romance, a sense of the abiding connection that couples have regardless of their gender. And let me just give you a very brief example. Justice Kennedy, once again, writing with the liberals, and this is about the third or fourth major gay rights decision from Justice Anthony Kennedy. He says the nature of marriage is that through its enduring bond, two persons together can find other freedoms, such as expression, intimacy, and spirituality. And he says that essentially it is a fundamental right of couples to have their marriages recognized because the Constitution's guarantee of equal protection of the laws. And right above that building behind me, it says equal justice under law. That principle, Justice Kennedy and 4 other justices say, means that the United States is now a nation where gay people can get married.
And Terry, this is significant because the Supreme Court seems to have gone further than they had to here. They could have, if they had wanted to, simply said that states have to acknowledge marriages that occurred in other states. But they went further here in this 5-4 decision.
Absolutely, David. They did have that halfway point they could have gone, which is states continue to have the laws you want, but if another state allows gay marriage, you have to recognize that marriage as well. Justice Kennedy going beyond, as you got the sense he wanted to a couple of years ago in the case about California Proposition 8 and the Defense of Marriage Act. And here's why. He's always been sensitive to the loss of dignity and the stigmatizing that he says denying gay couples the right to marry imposes. He says here excluding same-sex couples from marriage conflicts with a central promise of the right to marry. Without that recognition, he says, stability and predictability of marriage, their children suffer the stigma of knowing their families are somehow lesser. Again and again, we've heard about the children from Justice Kennedy, the children of families of same-sex couples across the country. He has been concerned in his writings and in the oral argument about what denying the right to marry to gay couples does to the children. And here, once again, in hard American law, we hear about the families that are everywhere in communities around us that now have an equal status in marriage in every state in the country.
Profound, Terry, because as we went into this morning, before we learned of this decision, we knew that same-sex marriage was legal in 37 states, including Washington, D.C., illegal in 13. The 5-4 decision coming in from the Supreme Court now, Terry. And how quickly does this change when you have a decision from the Supreme Court like this, from 37 states in D.C. to every state in America? How quickly?
It changes very quickly. It depends on the state and the jurisdiction. There are different procedures. It'll go through the secretaries of state, but in general, you can't say no to the Supreme Court when they hand down a constitutional opinion like this, saying that the fundamental charter of our country guarantees this right to all couples. It will be, at most, I would suggest, a matter of weeks before gay couples in every state in the country can walk to the courthouse and have a right to have their love, their relationship solemnified under marriage.
Terry, we can hear the honking of the horns and the people gathered at the court. Give us a sense, for the people watching at home, an historic decision from the Supreme Court today of what you're witnessing right there in Washington.
There are thousands of people out here, and I felt as I walked up that there wasn't quite the suspense and drama in the air that there was a couple of years ago. The country's moved so fast on this subject, it almost felt a little bit less intense. But when the decision came down and those interns ran across the plaza, and you got a sense almost like like a spark of fire as we understood what was actually done here in this opinion. A cheer, a deep cheer went right up through these thousands of people. There are people here who are not happy with this opinion, of course, people who believe that their faith tradition or their fundamental belief about marriage and family, that this contradicts that. But the vast majority of people here were very happy, and you could feel it in a really special way, a very historic moment.
Terry Moran, our man at the court. Terry, stick with us here as our coverage continues live here across the country. An historic decision from the Supreme Court saying same-sex marriage will now be legal in every state in this country. I want to bring in Chris Perry and Sandy Steer. We have followed their story for quite some time. They initially had a case before the Supreme Court in 2013. The result of the Supreme Court's decision in that case was to overturn Proposition 8 and legalize same-sex marriage in California. And Chris and Sandy, thanks for being with us here this morning. And I'm curious your reaction to the ruling just moments ago.
I can't even put into words how over the moon and elated we are about the ruling, not only for the couples that are in there fighting for their rights in their states, but for the children that Justice Kennedy has noted time and again should be protected by having their parents be able to be married, and for the children growing up in America today who may themselves believe that they are LGBT and should believe that the full protection of the law and their full potential have just been validated by the court.
And Sandy?
Yeah, good.
Today is a wonderful and exciting day to know that we finally have marriage equality in this country. 2 years ago, when Chris and I came to hear the ruling in our case in California, the Prop 8 case, we changed lives, and for so many people in California, we're so grateful to be a part of that movement. But since then, many, many people have suffered and have needed to have the benefits and the rights that we have had. So today, we feel proud to stand up with our American friends, brothers and sisters, to know that all people in this country finally have full marriage equality.
Well, Sandy and Chris, I know it's been a very personal battle for you and for the families who support their loved ones every step of the way. I thank you for being with us on an historic morning. I want to get right over to John Karl, our chief White House correspondent, who's live at the White House this morning. And John, I want to get to this number because this is key. In the most recent ABC News polling, 61% of Americans, that's more than 6 in 10 for the first time, said same-sex marriage should be legal in this country. And that's a sea change. You know, we cover lots of policy here, but we've never seen it quite this quickly, at least in recent memory. Just less than a decade ago, just 36% said they supported same-sex marriage. And a lot of people are pointing to President Obama and what he said with our own Robin Roberts not long ago in his administration, saying that he believed that even his own beliefs had evolved on this.
Oh, there's no question. This is the biggest sea change we have seen on a major cultural issue, certainly in my lifetime, certainly in our lifetimes. This is being celebrated here at the White House, but that sea change is embodied in President Obama himself. If you remember, David, when he ran for president the first time in 2008, he was opposed to same-sex marriage. He was against it. And now he has evolved over that time. He first coming out in that interview with Robin Roberts, and even more recently, because when the last same-sex marriage case went before the court, they stopped short. The White House stopped short of arguing for a constitutional right to marry for same-sex couples. This time, they were fully on board. They were rooting for this decision. And by the way, we just got in reaction from President Obama. It comes via Twitter, as you can imagine. He says, today is a big step in our march towards equality. Gay and lesbian couples now have the right to marry just like anyone else. Hashtag love wins. By the way, also a tweet coming in from Hillary Clinton, very much along the same lines. Another politician who had previously opposed same-sex marriage. She tweets, proud to celebrate an historic victory for marriage equality.
Yeah, this historic decision, perhaps a sign of the times, and the reaction from the president coming in over Twitter also illustrates the era that we live in. John, stick with us here because I want your reaction to a piece of audio from the Chief Justice in this case. And when we have that ready for you, we'll bring it to you. In the meantime, I want to show you images from the court. For everyone at home, it seemed kind of quiet behind John there and behind Terry seeing the Supreme Court, but I want to show you the moment. This was the reaction outside the court. We've had 2 historic decisions in the last 24 hours, one involving Obamacare, this morning involving same-sex marriage. As you watch live coverage here on ABC News, the Supreme Court ruling 5-4 in favor of same-sex marriage, making it legal in every state in America. And as you heard Terry Moran report not long ago, that this will happen fairly quickly in every state in America. My thanks to Terry Moran and John Karl, and for you at home for tuning in. And for many of you, we'll continue with Good Morning America right after the break. For others, I'll see you later for World News Tonight.
This has been a special report from ABC News. This is an ABC News special report. The Supreme Court rules. Now reporting, David Muir.
Good morning, and we are coming on the air because President Obama is about to speak in the Rose Garden about that landmark Supreme Court decision on same-sex marriage, the court making it legal in all 50 states in an historic 5-4 ruling. And this was the reaction outside the court. Hundreds gathered outside the court today for this historic moment. Going into the ruling, 37 states making it legal, including D.C., now legal in every state in the country. The president tweeting immediately after, "Today is a big step in our march toward equality," he wrote. "Gay and lesbian couples now have the right to marry just like anyone else. Hashtag love wins." And take a look at this tweet from the White House just moments ago. The White House in rainbow colors, obviously symbolic of the movement. ABC's Terry Moran outside the court. He was there as this came in. And Terry, when we were on the air earlier with live coverage, you simply said, it's over.
It is over, David, although the party, it seems, has just begun. I think there are more people here than when the decision came down. This court now a focal point of the celebration of full equality under the law, the Constitution, for gay couples, same-sex couples in every state in the country. And it has happened with blinding speed, really. I was in this court 12 years ago, just 12 years ago, when the court handed down a decision saying that laws that criminalized homosexual conduct, that you could go to jail for loving the person that you loved, were unconstitutional. Here we are 12 years later saying every single same-sex couple in the country can get married. It's dizzying.
And the sea change in the polling, Terry, we have some of the numbers here. In the most recent ABC News poll, 61% of Americans, that's more than 6 in 10 for the first time, saying that they believe that same-sex marriage should be legal in this country. A sweeping change just in the last decade. President Obama in the Rose Garden about to speak about this landmark moment for the Supreme Court.
Good morning. Our nation was founded on a bedrock principle that we are all created equal. The project of each generation is to bridge the meaning of those founding words with the realities of changing times. A never-ending quest to ensure those words ring true for every single American. Progress on this journey often comes in small increments. Sometimes 2 steps forward, 1 step back, propelled by the persistent effort of dedicated citizens. And then sometimes there are days like this, when that slow, steady effort is rewarded with justice that arrives like a thunderbolt. This morning, the Supreme Court recognized that the Constitution guarantees marriage equality. In doing so, they've reaffirmed that all Americans are entitled to the equal protection of the law. That all people should be treated equally, regardless of who they are or who they love. This decision will end the patchwork system we currently have. It will end the uncertainty hundreds of thousands of same-sex couples face from not knowing whether their marriage, legitimate in the eyes of one state, will remain if they decide to move or even visit another. This ruling will strengthen all of our communities by offering to all loving same-sex couples the dignity of marriage across this great land. In my second inaugural address, I said that if we are truly created equal, then surely the love we commit to one another must be equal as well. It is gratifying to see that principle enshrined into law by this decision. This ruling is a victory for Jim Obergefell and the other plaintiffs in the case. It's a victory for gay and lesbian couples who have fought so long for their basic civil rights. It's a victory for their children, whose families will now be recognized as equal to any other. It's a victory for the allies and friends and supporters who spent years, even decades, working and praying for change to come. And this ruling is a victory for America. This decision affirms what millions of Americans already believe in their hearts. When all Americans are treated as equal, we are all more free. My administration has been guided by that idea. It's why we stopped defending the so-called Defense of Marriage Act, and why we were pleased when the court finally struck down a central provision of that discriminatory law. It's why we ended Don't Ask, Don't Tell. From extending full marital benefits to federal employees and their spouses, to expanding hospital visitation rights for LGBT patients and their loved ones, we've made real progress in advancing equality for LGBT Americans in ways that were unimaginable not too long ago. I know change for many of our LGBT brothers and sisters must have seemed so slow for so long. But compared to so many other issues, America's shift has been so quick. I know that Americans of goodwill continue to hold a wide range of views on this issue. Opposition in some cases has been based on sincere and deeply held beliefs. All of us who welcome today's news should be mindful of that fact. Recognize different viewpoints. Revere our deep commitment to religious freedom. But today should also give us hope that on the many issues with which we grapple, often painfully, real change is possible. Shifts in hearts and minds is possible. And those who have come so far on their journey to equality have a responsibility to reach back and help others join them. Because for all our differences, we are one people, stronger together than we could ever be alone. That's always been our story. We are big and vast and diverse, a nation of people with different backgrounds and beliefs, different experiences and stories, but bound by our shared ideal that no matter who you are or what you look like, how you started off, or how and who you love, America's a place where you can write your own destiny. We are a people who believe that every single child is entitled to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. There's so much more work to be done to extend the full promise of America to every American. But today we can say, in no uncertain terms, that we've made our union a little more perfect. That's the consequence of a decision from the Supreme Court, but more importantly, it is a consequence of the countless small acts of courage of millions of people across decades who stood up, who came out, who talked to parents who loved their children no matter what. Folks who were willing to endure bullying and taunts and stayed strong and came to believe in themselves and who they were. and slowly made an entire country realize that love is love. What an extraordinary achievement. What a vindication of the belief that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. What a reminder of what Bobby Kennedy once said about how small actions can be like pebbles being thrown into a still lake, ripples of hope cascade outwards and change the world. Those countless, often anonymous heroes, they deserve our thanks. They should be very proud. America should be very proud. Thank you.
President Obama in the Rose Garden after the landmark decision from the Supreme Court today making same-sex marriage legal in every state in this country. The president saying, as is so often the case in these battles, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, that justice rarely arrives like a thunderbolt, in his words, saying this will end the patchwork system that we currently have. And he went on to say that when all Americans are treated as equal, we are all more free. I want to bring in John Karl, our chief White House correspondent. And John, I wanted to take our viewers at home back to that moment in 2012, Robin Roberts sitting down with the president. And at the time, he said to Robin, you know, Malia and Sasha, they've got friends whose parents are same-sex couples. And that Malia and Sasha, it wouldn't dawn on them that somehow their friends' parents would be treated differently. I'm curious, you've covered this president. Do you think he could have imagined the sea change, how quickly this would change?
I don't really think anybody could have, and it was a sea change that you saw in the president himself. As you remember, David, back when he ran for president in 2008, he was not in favor of gay marriage. He was opposed to gay marriage. So was Hillary Clinton. His views changed on this, and then the stunning sea change in public opinion, and some very strong words from the president saying this ruling is a victory for America. We have made our union a little more perfect. So, certainly a decision that is being celebrated here at this White House, but one that would have been hard to imagine when this president was first sworn in.
John, thank you. I want to get back over to Terry Moran at the court, because Terry, the dissent was scathing in this. Justice Scalia saying the Supreme Court of the United States has descended from the disciplined legal reasoning of John Marshall to essentially the fortune cookie.
Well, Justice Scalia is angry again, and there's no question that he does not like the way this decision was reached. He doesn't think the 14th Amendment was intended to provide this protection to same-sex couples, and he doesn't think that it's right for judges to do this kind of thing. He cast scorn on Justice Kennedy's opinion, saying the stuff contained in today's opinion has to diminish this court's reputation for clear thinking. But Justice Scalia is also essentially fighting the cultural battle in this court that the country has been fighting, and his side has lost. That picture we just saw in the Rose Garden is representative of really the America of tomorrow. We are not just amazed at how quickly this has happened, but that was an African-American president who 15 years ago would have thought that possible, announcing that in every county, in every town, in every village in the country, gay couples can go into the courthouse and get married. It's also a time when the Confederate flag is coming down off the State House of South Carolina. Change is afoot, there's no question about it, and this is a big part of it.
Terry Moran at the Supreme Court, and you even heard the president acknowledge a wide range of views still exist in this country on this issue. It is now the law of the land, same-sex marriage in a 5-4 ruling, but we will cover all of the viewpoints tonight on World News Tonight and throughout the afternoon at abcnews.com. Until then, I'm David Muir. Good day.
This has been a special report from ABC News.